So are you interested in going to graduate school, but you need more advice about the application process? Well, stick around because this video is for you. Hi, my name is Crystal and welcome back to my channel. Just a full disclaimer before I get started, I just want to make sure that everyone knows that this is advice based off of my particular journey. So I realize that everyone's journey is completely different and it's also program specific. So the tips that I'm giving are based off of interviews I've had with current faculty in my prospective programs, interviews with current PhD students, and also like just different tips and advice that I've gotten off of doing my own research, from the internet. Let's just go ahead and get straight into it. This advice is in no particular order. I feel like it's all equally important, but I did want to start with something I felt like was probably the most important thing out of all the important things, which is start early. And so the process is already very competitive and you don't want to hinder your chances of getting into a great graduate school program just because you weren't able to get all of your application materials in on time. So depending on the program that you're applying to, most applications open about I think early August, and then their deadline is late November, early December. And so whenever I was applying, the application opened around August. I was able to send out the links for my letters of recommendations. Like that's one of the first things you really want to do, because sometimes the people that you're getting to write your letters of recommendations for you have a lot going on in their life. And so the last thing they want to do is get a link for a letter of recommendation at the very last minute. Like I said, I've been through the process a couple of times and I've realized that like waiting till the last minute added like a lot more unnecessary pressure. So once the applications close around like December 1st, early December, depending on your program, you should start hearing things back as soon as February, but no later than March. My second piece of advice would be to visit the programs that you're interested in. Now, I know this is a little difficult with the current situation of the world right now with the current pandemic, but this is something that really shaped my progress as an applicant, because I was going to the open houses, and at the open houses I was able to meet current students and hear more about them, what helped them get into the grad school program. And I was also able to meet with current faculty as well. If you and another candidate maybe have equal applications, right? So say your GRE scores were equally as competitive, you both have a very strong letter of intent, but they're trying to decide which one to take. Usually they're gonna go with someone that they've already seen before. And it's a little bit different than applying from undergrad, where you don't necessarily have to visit the schools that you want to apply to. But for graduate school, like I said, it's a little bit more competitive. And so if you can kind of show them like who you are, whenever your application comes across their table, they're going to, remember you, because they're going to know like, hey, this student came to visit. And so you're giving them more to work with as far as like making a decision about your application. Unfortunately, a lot of the times for graduate school programs, it all boils down to who you know. And so if you do know someone already in the program, I feel like it kind of increases your chances of getting into the program. I don't feel like it hurts you to visit the schools, but I do feel like it helps you. Like I said, not everyone I talked to did this, but the people that were most successful in getting into, like a good number of programs, especially the really competitive ones, were ones that were already known at the program. This kind of leads me into my third piece of advice, which would be to contact the faculty members that you wish to work with. Just keep in mind that these faculty members also have like a lot going on in their lives, and so they don't want to read like a very long and drawn out email. Try to make your email as concise and as respectful as possible. And this piece of advice is very crucial because first impressions mean a lot. I'll go ahead and read like the sample email, even though I'm including it here as a picture, just to give you an idea of like, what I said, or the flow of the email as well. I said, "Dear Dr. Monroy, I hope this email finds you well. I'm a current MPH student at George Washington University studying epidemiology with a focus in cancer research, minority health, chronic disease, health disparities and health equity, and social determinants of health. I'm currently applying to PhD programs, and I'm searching for programs that I feel will be a great fit concerning my research interests and provide a variety of opportunities for growth. I know this time in the semester is very hectic, but I was wondering if you had the opportunity to meet with me via phone call or video call to briefly discuss more of your research and opportunities within the program. I have attached my CV as well. Thank you again for your time." So there you just see, like, I laid out what I'm interested in and how it aligns with their research interests. I also told them where I am and what I'm currently doing, which was applying to PhD programs. And I just acknowledged that there is a lot going on, so I understand if they're not able to get back. And, you know, I tried to keep this as concise as possible. I know it does look like a lot if you're looking at it from the email that I screenshotted from my phone, but if you look at it on your desktop, it's honestly 3 sentences. 3 very concise, straight to the point sentences. So my 4th piece of advice will be about your letter of intent or your statement of purpose. So these documents are slightly different depending on, you know, your program, but usually if you go to the program's website, they have like an outline of what they want you to include. Usually that is like research interest or your research background. It also includes things that aren't very apparent from your other application materials. So like say if you had like, you know, a bad semester, well, in your letter of intent, maybe you can briefly talk about, you know, what was going on in that semester and how you got better from that semester. This should be one of the first things that you really work on because you're going to have several drafts of it. So for me, I was in the writing center 3 times a week because that was the limited number of times that we had to see people working in the writing center. But I made sure that I worked on my letter of intent every week, almost every day, because I knew that my GRE scores weren't as strong, but I knew that I was a stronger writer. So I spent a lot of time, energy, and focus on making sure that my letter of intent was as strong as possible. In order to have a strong letter of intent, you need something to put in it. So my 5th piece of advice would be to work on building that experience. As I mentioned previously, most programs are very competitive, so they want to see that you're already doing the research and that you already have the skills necessary to be a successful grad student. So getting some of that teaching experience or some of that research experience or lab experience is actually very, very valuable as an applicant. This information gives the program a better sense of who you are and how well you're going to fit into their program. So my 6th piece of advice would be to stay organized. If you're like me, you kind of want to increase your chances of getting accepted into grad school, and so you apply to multiple programs that you find interesting or that you find would be a good fit concerning, you know, what needs you feel like need to be met as a graduate student. So whenever I was applying for PhD programs, I applied to 7 schools total. Some students apply to 13, 14. I even heard of people applying to up to 20 programs, but to me that's kind of a lot. Like, it's already a very, like, you know, complex process. I didn't want to further complicate the process by applying to, you know, 1,000 programs. Like, every program I applied to was a program that I knew I would be happy if I got accepted into. I know some people make spreadsheets of like the different programs they're applying to, but for me, I just got like a $1 notebook from Walmart. So I'll show it to you, but it looks a little crazy because it has notes everywhere. Here is like the first page. Like I said, it's completely crazy, but it lists all the schools that I applied to on the first couple of pages, and like every other page after that is like 1 page dedicated to each program. Well, actually like a couple of pages dedicated to each program. In here, I would have like the application due date. I'll have faculty members that I'm interested in working with. I'll put like a check by their name if they did respond to my email and I was able to have a conversation with them. A lot of the time, some of the programs want to know if you were able to contact some of the faculty there because they want you to kind of like mention it in your statement of purpose as well. It's like the best way I could stay organized. You can see it's pretty jacked up, man, because I used it a lot. I carried it with me everywhere I went. So this last piece of advice was something that I was going back and forth about including. I feel like because it did have a very significant effect on my application process that I would include it. And so my 7th piece of advice would be to work on having strong GRE scores. Now, standardized tests aren't a predictor of how smart you are. I feel like they're just a predictor of how well you take a test. However, some schools still use GRE scores and standardized tests to evaluate their applicants. And I think it's because a lot of times they have like, you know, hundreds of applications coming in. They kind of need some way to kind of, you know, sift through some of the applicants. I do not have strong GRE scores. When it comes to standardized tests, I get something called test anxiety, which is a real thing. I had to look it up and figure out like why I would know something and I could have a conversation with you about something, but as soon as you put like a multiple choice test in front of me, I just blank. You know, if you're a good test taker, then this is great for you. Like, you don't have to worry about this. But if you're like me and you kind of like freak out when you get multiple choice tests put in front of you, then I'm sorry, but the best thing that I can advise you to do is to work on the other parts of your application to make sure that that you still are a strong applicant. So like I said, I know I'm a better writer, and so I spent a lot of time working on my letter of intent and making sure that it was as strong as possible. After I took the GRE the first time and realized how trash my scores were, I downloaded the GRE app, like the official GRE app, and it was about $20. And this is what it looks like. And so it was on my phone, and so every day I pretty much studied with this app. They have like sample tests as well, but usually I just use this to practice with the quantitative part of it. And I can honestly say this app really did improve my scores. I use the app every day, and it really helped me with the process of like trying to select the best answer. So those are my 7 pieces of advice for you. I hope that this was helpful to someone. Like I said, this is solely based off of my experience and the research that I've done on the process, and just going through the process 3 separate times, and ultimately getting into my dream school. So I'm very excited to start at Yale in the fall. I'm usually very responsive to my comments, and so if you do need more advice on a specific topic, just let me know. I would love to help out. I always get super excited when someone comes to me asking for advice about graduate school, because it kind of reminds me that I'm not the only person who has ever tried to do this. You never know who your story could help or what your experience can add or contribute to someone else's journey. So please let me know if you have any more questions about the process. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you've made it this far. And best of luck to you on your journey. Bye, y'all.